Hello and welcome to another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show. I am your host, Lewis Phillips, and we have a lot to get into on this episode, presented by Polisport, All Balls Racing, and EVS Sports. Round 2 of MXGP has been and gone into Xanadu in Spain. It was yet another masterclass by Jorge Prado, but there is a lot of interesting stuff going on in the paddock. Injuries, disqualifications, fill-in riders. 2025 talks have started incredibly early. I hear that one rider signed over the weekend and another rider told me that his phone is blowing up. So, a lot to get into on this episode. But before we go any further, allow me to just tell you about Polisport. Do you remember all of the crashes and falls that you had and the levers that you destroyed because of that? Well, that's no longer a problem. Polisport released the Pivot Unbreakable levers, a lever set that never breaks. If you fall, they can be bent back to their original shape. Easy as that. Incredible, right? And I'll tell you what, I kind of meant to save that read because Glenn Coldenoff crashed and broke a lever at the weekend. So my old buddy Glenn, we go way back. You can't say Glenn without Lewis and vice versa. It's like Bill and Ben, Ant and Dec. I'm going to call him and send him some Polisport levers, and then he will be doing much better, which is...
I'd love to know how many American listeners know about Ant and Dec.
Well, I think Bill and Ben was even more...
yeah, you're showing
niche.
That's like the 1960s.
What, Bill and
Isn't
Ben,
it?
the Flower Pot Men?
Yeah, that's like 50s or 60s. How on earth do you know about that? And you don't know about most other pop culture stuff.
What can I say? I'm a fountain of knowledge. But not as much of a fountain of knowledge as my co-host on this show from the Paddock Pass podcast, from MotoGP, just as a whole, generically, is Adam Wheeler. How's it going?
Yes, it's going well. Thank you, Lewis. Cheers for that intro. And yeah, I was in MotoGP the weekend, round 2 as well, in Portimao. I think we said this on the last podcast. How many events do these race promoters want to put on one chunk of land? Because you had MotoGP in Portugal, you had MXGP in Spain, and then also World Superbike in Catalonia. But then, some leverage has to be given to in-front motor racing because the Spanish Grand Prix was pushed up out of its original slot, which is usually around sort of May, June time to be round 2 after Argentina. And I don't know about you, but did you see on the footage, it looked to me like the crowd was a little bit down on past editions. Perhaps this could be a consequence of having 2 Spanish Grand Prix in the calendar this year.
Well, I was actually going to raise that as well because I too felt as though the crowd was down, but the shots from the podium of the crowd who flocked to see Jorge Prado take his red plate, his winner's trophy, that was quite impressive. That suddenly seemed like a lot of people. But the grandstands, the infield, all of that seemed, I would say, significantly lighter than previous years.
Yeah, because if there are a lot of Prado fans who traditionally go to Madrid, and it's been sort of the home of the Spanish Grand Prix now for 5 years, then they know the other Spanish Grand Prix. I'm not sure what it's called. Is it the Grand Prix of Europe or the Grand Prix of Lugo or the region where Jorge is from? Then, of course, they're going to save their money, save their powder until, that Grand Prix takes place. So it could explain why Madrid was a little bit down. I mean, Spain has one exceptional rider, one extremely good rider, and then some younger ones coming through that, might be pretty decent. But it's not quite sort of Cairoli-esque levels to provoke 3-4 events in one country each year. I mean, there was a long time where we didn't have a Spanish Grand Prix. So it does seem, I don't want to use the word overkill, but I think we have to be a bit careful with the market here.
Well, that segues nicely into the hot rumour at the moment, which is that the final round, currently TBA for Italy, will be held at Belpuig. That's the hot rumour, Belpuig.
It's not apparently it's not happening.
Okay.
Belpuig is not happening. It's not been confirmed, but there is going to be a Grand Prix in the south of Spain in a place called Real Ciudad. It's kind of down in sort of Murcia way, right in the center of Spain. No, there's a track there that exists, but I'm not sure if that's exactly the venue for the Grand Prix. This is the rumor anyway. But believe me, when I say kind of southern interior Spain in the end of the summer, it's going to be weather that's only going to suit a certain segment of the MXGP paddock. Certainly not good for pasty Englishmen.
Tell me this: where is that place in relation to Lugo and in relation to Madrid?
Okay, so if you look at Spain as a square, then Madrid is pretty much in the middle. Lugo is right up in the top left-hand corner, so above Portugal. That explains why it's nice and green, because it tends to be quite rainy. And then this third Grand Prix, again, based on the rumors, is pretty much down the bottom, center bottom. And, they reach ridiculous temperatures in the summer. It's going to be very hot.
So perhaps far enough away from the most recent race in Lugo and far enough away calendar-wise from Madrid to do reasonably well. I mean, if that's going to be Jorge Prado's farewell, then I would imagine that's actually maybe by design. Maybe that's what spurred this.
Yeah. I think one way it could possibly work having 3 Spanish Grand Prix on an MXGP calendar is if Prado is in play for the title, or like you say, it's some sort of farewell event. I mean, maybe we can ask him about it when he comes on the podcast.
Yes, because I'm such a good host that I never even told everyone that Jorge Prado will be joining us in around 20 minutes, 15 minutes. He will be on video. I'm very excited because I'm definitely not prepared to handle this level of video. So watch this space, because if the interview isn't entertaining, my faffing about will be. Let's talk about Prado. To echo what I said after Argentina, I have no words. This is incredible. We always knew that Jorge Prado was an incredible rider. He's always been incredible. He was great last year. I did not know that it was possible for an incredible rider to become or take such a step, such a significant step. Unbeatable springs to mind. I do not know what Gajser, Herlings and Febvre are going to do to stop him. And honestly, it seems they are also scratching their heads and cowering a little bit.
Yes, I think the Spanish Grand Prix, I mean, Prado in his championship winning season last year didn't have the best weekend in Madrid. I think that was probably the low point of his season, to be honest, that sort of lack of performance in front of his home fans. But this time, Lewis, I mean, it was an exceptional execution of the classic Prado MO. In other words, he won both motos as well as the qualifying heat in the first minute, simply through the start and just pounding out 2 to 3 laps of perfection. And I think in the qualifying race, it had an absurd gap after like 3 to 4 laps. It was unbridgeable. I mean, the only way he was going to lose it was through a major failure on his part, and it didn't come. And I think that kind of intensity is something that he picked up from Supercross. It shows a rider who's at the peak of his confidence and his powers. He does seem to look fitter this year. I mean, I think everything that he did in California has to have had some positive bearing, and we can ask him about that. But yeah, I mean, this was phenomenal. My only concern is perhaps other riders are not peaking. They're obviously not reaching that sort of same level of intensity at this point in the season. And inevitably, Jorge is going to deal with some sort of physical setback at some point. So how much faster and how much better are the likes of, Gajser, Febvre and Herlings and Jeremy Seau are going to get?
Yeah, I would argue that, okay, it's clear now that Supercross did not hamper his prep. If anything, that's helped him. If you are a competitor and you are looking for a weakness to kind of improve your hope, maybe at some point his heavy schedule catches up with him and he starts to feel fatigued. That's now the next question. He's ticked box 1. But yeah, what I want to ask him is, does this feel like MX2? Because I would imagine that at no point in his 450 career has he lined up next to Herlings and Gajser and thought to himself, piece of cake, this is mine, I don't even need to stress. But I feel as though that's where he's at now, which is, again, I almost can't believe I'm saying this, because they started right with him. This doesn't happen.
I think you tweeted it as well. I mean, he's matched his win total from 2023 already in the first 2 rounds of 2024. And not in terms of motos, of course, but of overall Grand Prix wins. But I think, that once he starts like that and he hits the first 2 laps like that, then you are not going to catch him. Perhaps Jeffrey Herlings in the sand has a chance, but Prado's current form, Lewis, also indicates to me that he's happier than ever with that sort of KTM gas 450 package he has. And that's also something that the others have to be a little bit afraid of.
I don't know where it goes from here. If you look at the points, Federer is already 22 down, which, to be fair, he was that many points down at this point last year as well. And I think Hurling's is 37? Which, to be honest, I'm shocked the gaps are that big because Federer has effectively been on the podium in every moto. Not in the MXGP qualifying race in Argentina, and he was 4th in Moto 1. But come on, 4th is not horrific. I can't believe that the gap's been built that significantly. Gajser is only 10 down, of course. But yeah, like when I pulled up the standings, I was in shock a little bit. I don't know how this has happened so fast.
Yeah, but also his rivals have to learn something from last year, right? And that's the amount of points that Prado got from turning up early and getting a little bit of the job done on Saturdays with a qualifying race. Some people will have to start putting more importance on the points, I think, because it does level out by the end of it. And of course, it's going to be impossible for Jorge to go 1-1 all the way through. He's not going to be doing a Jet Lawrence here simply because the tracks are so different and the climates and the countries and the cultures. It's a much more of a mixed bag than say the nationals. So, Prado, yeah, it's not, I mean, it's only round 2, but it seems ridiculous to say this, but he will have learned last year about how to administer a championship campaign. And if you're Jeffrey Hurlington, you give him 37 points, then that immediately puts pressure on Jeffrey, who's coming back after another torrid year or half a year of injury, to suddenly start racking up wins and making sure that Prado is a couple of positions behind him every week.
Yeah, last year, Prado definitely managed for championship. Maybe almost too much. Maybe he was too hesitant at points. So I would imagine he's learned that, I can actually push X amount more and still be safe. And at what point does he go into that mode again? Because we are heading in that direction. Like, Rio Losado is next. It's going to be Hurlings or Prado who win, I do believe. And that should be one heck of a battle. I'm already frothing at the mouth at the prospect of that. But if Prado wins again, completely realistic, he's at a point already where he can be like, okay, this is good. I'm in a good spot. I don't need to panic. I can take this second place. I'm not going to kill myself to run with Jeffrey. Like, it's baffling how we've ended up in this situation, because with the Supercross experiment, the other riders coming in healthy for the first time in a while, it was not meant to go this way. And yet he's risen to be the cream of the crop.
I mean, Gajser, sort of Febra, Sewer, Coldenhoff, Vlaanderen. I mean, these are all riders that can be extremely quick in the sand. I mean, Vlaanderen won his first overall Grand Prix in Sardinia for round 3. So he's going to go there, and assuming he's fit and reasonably happy with the bike, then he's going to be quick again. So I think Jorge's going to have a much tougher time. It's not going to be as easy as it was in Madrid, where he was cheered around every corner, of course, in front of his fans. But yeah, Lewis, I think the championship kind of will get going a little bit in terms of maybe the picture for other people by round 3. And also, let's not forget, it depends a little bit on the weather we get there. I mean, Sardinia is an island. I mean, the weather's pretty crap across sort of southern Europe at the moment. Lots of rain and thunderstorms, and let's see what kind of conditions we find. But I think so far it's a powerful statement by Jorge. And now, if he keeps holding on to the red plate, we're just going to be waiting for news on what he does next year and then how that influences the rest of his season.
Bizarre that we've got a weekend off now. I cannot remember an MXGP schedule that went round 1, weekend off, round 2, weekend off. I feel like we're just kind of stalling the progress here. It's almost like, okay, let's get this ball rolling a little bit.
Well, it is Easter.
That's probably... Yeah, but we raced on Sunday and Monday on Easter. Bring back Volkensward.
That's true.
Remember those rumours? Where did Volkensward go? Gajser was fine. Maybe I would have expected him to go with Prado a little more than he did in the second moto and qualifying race. He was definitely the best suited to chase Prado out of himself, Hurlings and Federer. I don't know. I don't really know how to read Gajser at this point. 10 points down, that's fine. But just maybe a bit of a slower start than I expected. Or maybe this is a great start and Prado is just that exceptional.
Yeah, I think it's more that. And also, let's not forget about the track. I mean, you mentioned off the top, the title, intu-Xanadu. People were thinking, what on earth is going on with that? Well, intu-Xanadu is actually the name of the large shopping mall that's next door, which is, pretty good, not only for grabbing food afterwards. I'm sure the Five Guys did a roaring trade, Lewis, even though you weren't there.
It's a great GP.
And then, of course, Arroyo Molinos is the name of the area where the track is built. So you'd imagine there's some sort of local funding coming from there as a borough of Madrid. And the track virtually identical to last year and how we've known it in the past. Conditions pretty good. It looked overcast on Saturday and it was sort of sunnier on Sunday. And it looked pretty gnarly, the track. I did think there were some riders maybe a little bit in preservation mode, not wanting to. We talked about this with Argentina, and compared to Argentina, Madrid obviously was harder. It's much more compact and winding. Nowhere near as fast, but there was the depth of the ruts and the bumps and everything meant it was pretty treacherous.
An argument as old as time in the MXGP paddock. No one was happy with the prep. I do believe that for a man-made track, intu-Xanadu is one of the better ones. It's good, like it's not an abomination, but the track prep, which MXGP struggle with year on year, no matter the venue, I don't think that really allowed for great racing. So I do believe it was more a case of maintain consistency and battle with that versus other riders.
The big problem that venue is it's created specifically for the Grand Prix, so it's not being used all year round or even for any other sort of major events. So that means that the ground can be kind of weird. It can be soft in places and hard. It can only be as good as the amount of prep by the track crew that goes into it. And they're not going to have hours and hours and days to be able to get it right. And again, it depends a little bit on the weather and what's going on around here in this region at time of year.
Prado is the favourite for this title. Breaking news. Who is his biggest competitor in your mind? Is it Tim?
For consistency, I'll still say Febra. There's a little bit of mystery around Tim, but because he didn't really shine that much towards the end of 2023. But in terms of absolute strength and of course continuity, because Gajser's been an HRC man for that long, I think 10 years now he might have been in Honda colours. You can't count him out at all.
I want to say with confidence that you picked Febvre as your biggest disappointment in our preview show.
Biggest disappointment?
Because I picked Renaux for sure, which, by the way, we'll get to that. And I'm pretty sure you picked Febvre because I remember saying, oh, wow, look, it's just an anti-French podcast.
Yeah, but I did pick Jorge as world champion, right?
Yep. So, okay, I will shut up. Speaking of Tim, so in a bizarre turn of events, Ruben Fernandez, Tim's teammate on Honda HRC, or Team HRC as it's called in Europe. Look at me becoming American. He missed Argentina with an ankle injury, according to Honda representatives. Turns out he tore his ACL. Kind of a bizarre jump to go from ankle injury to torn ACL, but he will be out for much of the season. Weirdly,
it's going to be 6 months, isn't it?
Yeah, so like he might make it back for the last 4, I would think. The right decision to get it fixed, though, I do believe. Weirdly, HRC didn't fill Tim Gajser's spot last year. They went racing with a rookie, which would lead you to believe that they are more than happy to go racing with just Tim. But it seems all but done that Rowan van der Moostijk, who split from Fantic Factory Racing since our last podcast, will fill in on Team HRC imminently. I reached out to someone at Honda, the best man at Honda, and he did not confirm, but he confirmed that there have been some talks. But the industry is alight. Honestly, the last 24 hours, I've had 16 texts saying, have you heard Moostijk's going to HRC? So I would look for that to happen.
I think that situation is a case of pure coincidence. Because, our good friend Roger Harvey, he was once the general manager of HRC.
He's an advisor.
I'm not sure if he still is. He's an advisor. Oh, right, okay.
He listened to the first episode of this podcast after Argentina also.
Oh, he's going to listen to this one? That's the big question. But as he's an advisor, does that mean he just sits in hospitality all day, eating fine pasta and drinking coffee? This is what we need to know.
He did give me some advice yesterday, and I did say that he should be a advisor, because he's good at that. I want a job as an advisor.
Yeah, I mean, a consultant maybe is a little bit more a professional way of putting it. But I mean, I can remember Roger in the past always saying when people would ask why are HRC not replacing riders, and his statement or his quite reasoned argument would be, well, show me somebody that's good enough to do the job or to be able to contribute something, even in terms of development. And I think, with Van der Moosdijk splitting with Fantic, which we don't really know the reason why. Maybe you do, Lewis, but I haven't heard. He's suddenly on the market, and Fantic have released a statement saying, best wishes, good luck, crack on. He's free. So if Honda have some budget to be able to sign him to put the second bike in there, maybe they are having some development tasks ahead of them for 2024, then he's lucky to be able to fall into that.
Prado will be joining us in 15 minutes. Another slight delay. It's like waiting for a flight that is just constantly pushed back. You wonder if it's inevitably going to be cancelled. No, so allow me to get on my soapbox for the first time in this podcast. HRC. Well, first of all, no, I'll start with this. HRC. I don't want to step on the advisor's toes, but why are we not giving factory parts to Jonas? Why are we welcoming in Moosdijk and not being like, Jonas is doing really well on a Honda, let's just either give him stuff to make him do better, or even, they can't really take him into HRC. He's the only rider on standing construct Honda, because since our last podcast, Alberto Ferrato crashed and broke 8 ribs and punctured his lung. But still, give Jonas some special parts and let him run
I can
wild.
answer that for you.
Go on.
Because HRC and standing construct, as far as I know, are two very different Honda operations. HRC is directed from Japan, whereas standing construct is the main outlet for Honda Motor Europe. So they're the same brand, but they're kind of different teams, different divisions, different priorities. And I'm sure, Standing get a lot of support, everything that they need from Honda, but then they don't have the trick kit that goes straight from Japan, is shipped straight from Japan to, the Garibaldi sort of setup, if you like, run by sort of Marcus de Freitas and all those guys. So I think, to be able to mix it up a little bit is going to be awkward. I mean, are they even using some of the same stuff? I mean, HRC is Yoshimura pipes. I'm not even sure if they're still using that, and I don't think Standing are using the same kit. So maybe it's just too complicated to be able to mix it like that. But on now Alberto Ferrato, I mean, poor guy, just a crazy run of injuries, and I think you could tell that it was something serious. But when he made an Instagram post saying that he's stable and he's doing all right, and I think he made some remark like he pulled through, or it was looking shaky there for a while. You think, Jesus, that must have been a real big hit to break that many ribs, and he was really struggling there for a while. So it's worrying news, but thankfully, with a happy ending.
Yeah, on Instagram, he's in hospital bed with like 1 million wires hooked up to him. He looks like E.T. when he was like struggling. Yeah, get well soon
Bill
to
and Ben
Alberto
and now
Ferrato.
E.T. What is going on, Lewis?
I'm a man of the 80s. What can I say? We'll talk about 80s motocross. Yeah, I was going to make a remark, but I couldn't even do that. So there is. I'm not gonna. This is not gonna spill where this. No, I don't know what I'm saying. This is kind of my feeling, but I feel as though it's shared somewhat by other people. Moosdijk never won a MX2 overall.
MX2 Grand Prix.
He got a lifeline in MXGP with Fantic. He split from them. The hot rumor is that he wasn't. Not that he wasn't training. But the hot rumor is that he's not exactly the most motivated when it comes to cycling at 7 a.m. and then hitting the gym at 10 a.m., whatever the schedule says. And in talking to more and more people, it seems this has been a trend through FNH and whatnot. I don't know how true that is, but just there seems to be some smoke there. So he loses this ride, and now he's walked into arguably the best seat in the paddock. Is it not a bit like... how lucky do you want to get? And maybe someone else deserves this more?
Yeah, but I mean, also that could serve as a wake-up alarm for him. And if he goes into Honda with the same sort of outlook, and it doesn't work out, then you have to wonder where he's going to go next in his career. I mean, we're speculating here. I do apologize, Rowan, if you are a hard worker and this is actually inaccurate information. But Yeah, I mean, you cannot doubt that the kid can ride a bike. He's got good technique. He's fast. Whether you want to sort of bend your team philosophy or ethos to accommodate somebody like that is another thing. I mean, Fantic, as we know, are a well-run team. Louis Vosters has a tight ship. He has fantastic infrastructure, and maybe he kind of thought, well, if somebody's not willing to sort of go with a program, then goodbye. It kind of weakens them a little bit. I wonder what Fantic are going to do now. But then, HRC benefit, like I say, the wheels have just sort of clicked nicely into place for various people here, because HRC get a chance to potentially put a rookie and a fast rider on the bike that's going to be vacant for most of the season.
You jogged my memory. I almost forgot. Brian Bogers should be on a Fantic at the next round and beyond. So nice for him to also get a lifeline, because he was screwed over by the now defunct Revo Racing team. So yeah, that should happen. It's all going on. We're so early in the season, and it's like quite a lot.
Loads of Dutch riders. It's all going on with Dutch riders. What's happening?
And for once, Hurlings is just not in the headlines.
Yeah, and then we have this big gangly ginger kid killing it in MX2.
It took me a while to figure out who the hell that was. I had to search my brain then. Speaking of Hurlings, I think we're done with the fill-in rider. Well, there is one more fill-in rider, but we'll get to Yamaha. He was sick all weekend, as he so eloquently put it in multiple places. He was on the shitter all weekend. So, as only Hurlings would put it. So there's that. If you remember, you were in this text thread. I called him to go 4-3 for third overall, and he went 3-4. So, in my mind, he is right on track with the progress that I expected. How do you view the situation?
Yeah, I mean, you said on the last podcast that he should be on the podium or fighting for the podium in Spain, and then, on the podium and fighting for victory in Sardinia. And I think that is the case. And I think also you still saw Jeffrey hedging his bets a little bit in Spain. Of course, the sickness comes into it, but there were a couple of moments, and I have to admit, probably the most exciting part of the Spanish Grand Prix was when Jeffrey and Tim Gajser were sharing some track space. Because I thought, okay, these two are finally healthy. They're finally at the front of the field. Prado's disappeared, of course, but this could be quite a tasty battle. But Jeffrey didn't really have anything over a sustained period of time for Gajser on this occasion. But we'll definitely take some more of that over the next 6 months.
It was striking how odd it was to see Tim and Hurling side by side on track. It kind of reaffirmed the fact that they have just been ships passing in the night throughout their entire career. Like, I cannot even tell you the last time that I saw them both battle on track in any form. So that's quite bizarre.
I think Davey Coombs wrote a pretty good story about this in Racer X, maybe last year or the year before last, but two titans of MXGP in the last 10 years. And, if you take sort of Tony Cairoli out of the equation, then, these two are the big ones. And, it's just a real shame that we haven't seen them fighting each other on a more regular basis.
This is my Hurling's outlook for Rio Losado, which is deep sand if you are unfamiliar. It is entirely realistic that Prado beats him there. So if Prado wins, I'm not going to freak out about Hurlings. But if Hurlings isn't in the top 2, if he gets beaten by Gajser, who, to be honest, Gajser has never really fared well there, or Fevre, and Fevre is quite good at Rio Losado, but still, I would expect Hurlings to beat him. If he's outside of the top 2, then I'm going to raise an eyebrow. But being beaten by Prado is completely acceptable.
Yeah, I still think he's on his way back. I still think you need a bit more time. The next 3 tracks afterwards, the next 3 rounds are going to be pretty daunting, because you got the Arco di Trento hard pack, of course, in northern Italy, and then you've got Agueda in Portugal, which can be very rutty and rough again depending on the weather, or it can be sort of very hard packed and fast if it's just hot and sunny. And then I think the third Grand Prix after that, just looking at the calendar now, is of course Jorge Prado's MXGP of Galicia, it's called, in Lugo. So, and then St. John d'Angeli is another hard pack track. And then again, Germany after that. I mean, it's not until sort of the Grand Prix of Latvia, 7 rounds on, that you get to something that's a little bit kind of sandy again. But then, as we know from years past, Lewis, Latvia is not for the faint-hearted. And you really need to be a brave man to, plow the throttle on that one.
In a funny way, the way that the schedule is laid out, it's almost built to accommodate a Hurlings who is building. Like, if it was all sand tracks, Lommel, etc., at the start of the season, maybe he would feel inclined to push and win always. But with this layout of circuits, Hurlings can be measured up until Latvia, essentially, and then start to click into gear and try to go, if you want to put it simply. Of course, that doesn't work if Prado is sat on a 700-point lead by that point in the season. But I feel like if Hurlings is fighting temptation to ride over his limits, this schedule helps that.
Yeah, I really don't know what his inner desire is, but it's a case of whereby even if he adopts a Tony Cairoli mantra of aiming for the podium every single weekend, let's, for example, say that Prado does go on some ridiculous streak and, has the championship wrapped up, then Jeffrey can think about 2025. We know he's not a patient man, but, if he can just build his way back and then slay everyone in 25, which, he has a confirmed contract with Red Bull KTM, then that's not the end of the world, is it? I mean, what does he want? He's got the all-time record. He's got 5 championships. It's unrealistic he's going to get another 5 championships. So, I think Hurlings, if I had to guess, would just be looking for some sort of closure on this sort of cycle of injury and absence that's been happening, for the better part of 3 seasons now.
Yeah, you are big on this, aren't you? This whole Hurlings, like, building for 2025, and I don't see it. Like,
look at Eli Tomac, Lewis. I mean, look at Eli Tomac. I mean, do you not think if Eli sort of carried on racing, then by 2025 he would perhaps be drifting back to the rider that we saw in 23 and 22, 21?
But if you're Hurlings, and I'm sure he doesn't want to think this way, but I believe that he would be, you can't count on the fact that you're going to be healthy come 2025. You just can't. He has to seize every opportunity that's in front of him, because if anyone knows the highs and lows of sport and how unpredictable life can be, it's Jeffrey Hurlings. So I don't think he can ever make assumptions and plan around that.
Do you not think he kind of looks at his sofa and thinks, I've sat on this thing for so fucking long in the last 2 years. I would actually just like to get to the end of a world championship with a second, a third, or even a 4th position overall with a handful of wins and, the knowledge that I'm racing and enjoying my racing again. I mean, that has to be worth something. He's not sort of 21 years old and thinking of multiple titles and wins again.
I don't know. I've seen that like Sky Sports F1 put a lie detector on drivers and ask them questions. We could have a field day with that.
It's just TV bollocks. You never really know what the truth is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's me just invested in this information.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I got Jorge on this podcast. Why didn't you send Jeffrey a message? And after Rio Losado, we put him on and say, Jeffrey, what's more important to you? Finishing this season or, getting a top 3 championship result?
Yep.
Because it sounds, the answer would be obvious, but I wouldn't be surprised if he actually says, you know what, guys, I value actually making a full season of racing.
We'll do Jeffrey after Rio Losado. Also, Jonas, Vlanderen, Watson, of course, Zach Osborne, Roger Harvey, Rasmus. We need Rasmus on. We need the poor man.
No. Rasmus is staying away until Kaido Wolf stops winning because I don't want to be responsible for any kind of hoodoo.
Okay, that's fair. But we have quite the guest list in the works. So, yeah, look forward to that. Prado should be joining us any moment. But let's talk about Febvre. And actually, screw Fevre's results. Hot rumour. I don't know how true this is. I don't know how true it is right now. I believe we all know that it's going to happen eventually. But there was a rumour going around in Spain that Fevre has just signed with Triumph. Again, maybe that hasn't actually happened yet, but there's no doubt in my mind that it will happen at some point this year.
That makes it 10, at least 11 seasons of being a factory rider, if true. And it's not surprising at all, considering that Triumph were run by his former team in Kawasaki Colors, and a team that he got on so fantastically with and who rate him so much. The collaboration was strong in 2021. I mean, that's been his best season, apart from winning the world title in 2015. And, if they've waved a big check in his face and said, let's get it on again, then why not?
Hey, Jorge Prado is en route. So I'm just going to bring him in if you would like to talk about some. You know what? While he's coming in, talk about how great he is, because that will get the interview off to a great. Just act like we're blowing smoke up his ass.
We've been doing that for 15 minutes already.
Yeah, but
Jorge, you might
it's
listen
good for
to
our
this
rep.
back.
I don't care if it's good for our rep right now. It'll make for a good.
Or we can keep on talking about Roman Febvre. I mean, you know, Triumph. It displayed that the 250 is competitive. I don't think there can be too many loud questions over the 450. But yeah, I mean, but then it's quite early to get that deal done, isn't it? Round 2, you know, dropping out of factory Kawasaki's. And also, where did Kawasaki go? I mean, if Jeremy Sewer, let's say he's very happy in that team, there's the obvious answer. If he's not, then, you know, where did sort of that Ice One crew and that sort of big expenditure and infrastructure go in terms of an A-list rider? That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, that will be the biggest story of silly season, I believe, because Kawasaki could quickly find themselves in a rebuilding phase with 2 MX2 rookies who have just stepped up or something similar, which obviously would be quite a fall from where they've been with Romain, Dessau, Paulin. In fact, was there a break in that sort of period where they didn't have a title contender? I can't think of a time, because they went from Paulin straight to Dessau, didn't they?
Well, we're talking about 2 different Kawasaki teams here. I mean, if we ignore the motorcycle or the color, then you're talking about one team that had a world championship contender in Max Nagel in 2015, I want to say, you know, before injury took place. And then, you know, they've had sort of, I don't know, episodes of success. Of course, you know, you have Febvre's wins last year, Gautier Paulin shone briefly. Max Anstey had his best races in the MXGP class, riding a Husqvarna for the team, but there hasn't been all that much. And if, you know, if we think of some of the riders that have passed through there, Mitch Evans, Ben Watson, I think of the Australian rider's name is Todd Waters. You know,
there's a pool.
Yeah, there's a couple of riders that have gone through there and not really been able to show what they can do, and so yeah, they're going to have to maybe do some schmoozing to tempt somebody onto that factory bike if you know, this thing about Febvre is true and he's not going to finish his career in green.
I don't care if the deal is signed now or it's signed in 2 weeks. Febvre, in my mind, will not be on Kawasaki next year, because we know that Triumph want him, and I know for fact that he is number 1 on Ducati's shopping list. So
and he's also been a Monster rider forever. And if Monster extend their MX2 deal into the 450 program, then that also lines up nicely. Perhaps even that's where some of the funding has come from to sign him. And you imagine it's going to give him another 2 years. If you're a factory Kawasaki team, depending on the results over the next 3 to 4 months, and that's how frustratingly short-term racing can be, you know, do you give him another 1-year deal or something with Triumph? For sure, it's got to be 2. I mean, he's going to be developing that thing as he's racing.
I honestly believe that part of the reason why this is all happening so early is, as we forecast, there are going to be more riders than rides, and I believe that the teams are trying to act fast so they don't get left out in the cold. I was going over this with a rider yesterday. Say that Febvre is going to go to Triumph, which I would bet on. You would have potentially 1 seat at Triumph, 2 at Kawasaki, 1 at HRC, 1 at Yamaha, 1 at Gas potentially, maybe 1 at KTM if they open up a second 450, maybe definitely 1 at Husqvarna. But that doesn't matter now, because we have the man who has shocked the world, I think, across 2 rounds. Yeah, it is a shock.
She's the world champion. How can
it's ridiculous.
Anyone?
I've not seen someone do this well. This is insane. It's Red Bull Gas Factory Racing's Jorge Prado, fresh off of a 1-1-1 in Spain. How's it going, mate? How are you feeling after the weekend?
Hey guys, do you hear me? All good?
Yeah, you sound like you're underwater a little bit.
No, I'm doing good. We started season on a good note, already in Argentina, and then in Spain, we just, it was just a perfect weekend. I felt good with my bike, felt good with just myself, my riding, and I'm just enjoying a lot the moment. I think also the trip to the States was super cool. So I think the whole, 2024 season till now, it's like something different and cool. I'm enjoying.
Jorge, I think you have to either come closer to the telephone or try another solution because you sound very weak. Say something.
Okay.
That's better.
That's
Now better?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's much better. We
Now,
found
all right, because I have my telephone like this, and I think it blocks the audio. Yeah.
Ah, cool.
No, I just said I'm in a good point of my career, and I'm enjoying everything. And then Spain was perfect, and Argentina too, and that's it.
Jorge, one of the first Spanish Grand Prix we went to in Madrid, I mean, I kind of wrote about it saying that, it was like Valentino Rossi in MotoGP because you couldn't walk anywhere. I mean, you were running between the Red Bull hospitality and the team. The fans wanted you every minute of the day. I mean, how was it on a weekend when you're looking so strong as well? And the qualifying heat was like a training moto. I mean, were you aware there was anyone else on the track?
I mean, it's a little bit what you say, it's hard because actually on Saturday after the quali heat, and I went back to my hotel, and when I got to the hotel at night, I was more tired about all the stuff I had to do around, like out of the track than actually from riding. I had to do so many signing sessions, try to spend as much time as possible with the fans, and it was taking so much energy from me, and I'm like, whoa. I was completely dead on Saturday. I'm like, hopefully I can recover from this to Sunday, and obviously I did. But yeah, I mean, when you have a home GP, you try to do your best to have all the fans happy, but it takes always a lot of energy. So it wasn't an easy GP because there's a lot of stress and you want to win. The fans want you to win. So, but it's cool. You need to. I think in the last years I kind of start enjoying it a bit more. Like I appreciate all this a bit more, and I can, and when you do that, you can like enjoy the weekends in a different way.
Did you
So
notice?
when you,
sorry, go on.
sorry, Lewis, I'm just going to follow up. So when you have your home GP, the track named after you, I mean, do you plan to have like a disguise? Are you going to have a beard and like a huge wig or something to be able to move around and escape the circuit? What's the plan?
I mean, people everywhere. I had to, park as close as possible to the track because otherwise I can't get even for the free practice or the warm up. Everybody wants time from you, and the most of the people, they think that when you don't make a picture with them, it's because you don't want to, and it's maybe because you need to go and change yourself to get ready to go to the track, right? So, but anyway, you try to do as much as possible. And yeah, so it's very busy. Home GPs are always super busy, but it's cool because you can see when it's busy that that the motocross sport is growing, or at least, for example, in Spain, this year was full of fans. I need to say it was huge crowd, and this is cool to see. Yeah.
Did you notice more like attention from fans, media, being the reigning world champion, and after Supercross? Like, was that even more this year?
Yeah, I think so. And it should be, right? Running with the number 1 plate, then red plate as well. So let's say championship leader, and I should have the attention. I did, and obviously in Spain, I'm, let's say, number 1 rider. So everybody's going to the GP to cheer for the number 1, and they hope the number 1 wins. So it was crazy. You guys were not there, but the second moto where, Gajser and the guys were like around 6 seconds all the time, or maybe slightly more, but around that distance, like the fans were crazy. They didn't want to another rider to win. So it was really like every single lap, crowd going nuts. Yeah.
Jorge, there's obviously a big question around you at the moment for how fast you are and how well you're riding, but there's another one as well. So we want to get it out of the way. We know you can't really say anything because there's going to be press releases or there's formalities that still have to be done. But tell the listeners, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely you are to be doing Supercross next year in the AMA on a full-time basis. And more importantly, when do you think you'll be able to tell your fans and give some news about it?
I mean, my my time in the US was great. This year, I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed a lot of the racing, and it's a totally different world. I actually expected to be more similar to motocross, but it's actually so different. The bike setup was so different to what I was used to. The format of the racing and actually the tracks that I train, like at the test tracks and race tracks, are again like a big difference. So it's all about experience. But going back to your question, because otherwise I start talking about other stuff. There is a big possibility. Yeah, there's a big one. But I don't know when I can confirm if I go or I stay. Like, I don't know.
Done like a politician. Nicely
Yeah.
done.
I prefer to don't get in trouble, so I better don't say anything.
You must be tired of people asking, perhaps. I mean, it's going to be something that rolls on a little bit, right?
No, it's funny, right? Because you also see the people. There's a lot of people that wants me to race there, so that's cool. And I also felt like when I was there, like everybody treated me very well. I was very happy about that. Like from the media to the fans, the team, I was very happy. So if I go there, I don't think I will be sad.
When you're doing interviews with like Spanish media who aren't motocross fans per se, do they like understand what Supercross is? Because obviously to them, the Motocross World Championship is F1, it's MotoGP. So do you have to explain a little bit like why Supercross is so good and important?
Yeah, I think if you are a little bit, let's say, out of the motocross world, and especially in Spain, that motocross is not that super famous. If you start talking about Supercross, it's already like, what is that? Racing in stadiums? But when you start explaining, like, yeah, we are racing under the lights, stadium, 60,000 spectators, all, let's say, actually what's Supercross, right? If you start explaining that, then they start saying, like, they start thinking about something more similar to soccer, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's hard to understand when you're not in the motocross world, I need to say. But yeah, Supercross, it's big. It's that's why I maybe go.
Adam?
Jorge, is the bike currently the best you've had? Would you say the 450? I mean, you took a good season and a half to get, where you want, but at the moment it looks like your old 250, you can do exactly what you want with it. Or is there still some work to be done?
I mean, it's since 2022 till now, it's the best it has been by far. It was also, I need to say, not too difficult to beat the bike from 2022. But yeah, now it feels way better. Even last year we had a good base setup. I felt decent all year long, but I feel like it's better. We changed a few things and it's working. I feel comfortable riding the sand. I feel very comfortable also riding hardpack tracks like Madrid with ruts and where you need to be very technical and where you need to, like, where I can say, okay, I want the front wheel in that spot so I can turn, or I can jump these braking bumps, or I just can play. So this year I can play a little bit more with the bike, and that's because the bike, it got better, So sometimes you want to do things, but the bike doesn't react like you want, and you are struggling. But at the moment, I feel quite comfortable with the bike, and I didn't do much testing. So for sure, we can improve from where we are now. I came back from the States, and then I pretty much did just a week of testing. That's all I did before Argentina and till now. So in just a week, I could have this setup. So this is cool.
Yeah, you can say this honestly now. Did you believe that the 4 races in Supercross would be more of a disadvantage of a start of MXGP? Obviously, it's fine. You're not at a disadvantage at all. But did you expect it to maybe hold you back a little more than it has?
No, I didn't think. I was never worried, but I was like, maybe when I get back to my bike and I knew we had new things to test, if those new things takes more time that the time we have before Argentina, then would be a struggle, right? Will be like, damn, I should have been here earlier to have like a good start of the season in MXGP. But on the other hand, I've been riding my bike. I've been training a lot. I've been racing. So, I mean, I didn't see a problem there. I was just more worried about, is the bike going to be ready to race in Argentina or not? That was the only thing it went through my mind when I was racing Supercross.
Adam?
Jorge, I think, you have something ridiculous like 130 hole shots now. I mean, it's a crazy amount. I mean, are you able to build like a house from all those black perspex, plates they give you of Fox Racing? I mean, it's such a fantastic part of your arsenal for racing. Again, in Spain, it was amazing. I think people will be paying you to learn your technique or something. And I know just through interviews of you over the years, I've asked you about it numerous times, but wow, it's cool to see that it's still so effective for you.
Yeah, and I think every year it's getting more difficult because the bikes are getting better. So many times I don't think it's real like the rider that does a perfect start. It's more that they have a bike that starts. So before, when we used to start in the dirt and maybe there was not so much electronic involved, then you could make a bigger difference. Or even in the beginning when we started with the mesh, but the bikes didn't have as much as electronic as they have now, then the difference was still like bigger than now. Right now, all the Japanese bikes, they have so much electronic. They just give gas, release the clutch, and they start, right? So for us, like in the KTM group, we don't have that. We got to start by ourselves. So if I make a mistake, I start first or I start last. That's a little bit what happens with us. But in my case, I practice starts in when I go for training. I'm confident on myself and it comes naturally. So this is a strong point, right? Some people have stronger points. I don't know, like passing other riders. One of my strong points is, are the starts.
A couple more questions. Speaking of starts, when you're lining up on the gate this year alongside Hurlings, Gajser, two great champions, obviously, do you notice a difference in your confidence? Like, I feel like this year you're lining up next to them and thinking, that's no problem. Like, I've got this. I'm the best guy. I can win any weekend, any surface. Is that new, or has that changed from last year and the year before?
Yeah, probably I feel better this year, like mental-wise. Like, I get to the gate and, for example, in Spain, I got to my gate, I was in the starting line and I was not even thinking who was next to me or all the riders. I was just thinking about what I wanted to do. I wanted to start first, pull away and win. It was clear. I had my plan in my head and I didn't think about all the riders or if some guy was going to maybe catch me at the end of the race because they were faster, but not because I'm fit enough to be the fastest guy at the end of the moto. I can be the fastest guy in the beginning of the moto, so I'm not worried. I believe in what I've been training. I believe in my fitness, in my ability to do a good start and control the race. So obviously, it's not going to be like this every single race, or maybe yes, but I mean it's very, very difficult. So, but I think you gotta trust in yourself if you really have a strong program and if you're feeling good, why not?
Jorge, last one from me. I'm guessing you're in your base in Belgium, right? Because I can see the sky behind you and it looks very grey and typically Belgian. Luis has been very opinionated on this podcast about your teammate, Simon Lagenfelder. He feels that, Simon, has had his time in Italy. Maybe he needs to move to Belgium and change his training a little bit. You've done both. I mean, you moved to Belgium when you were young with your family. You rode many, many thousands of laps in Malagrotto in Italy and then went back to sort of Belgium. What's apart from the hugely fantastic climate in Belgium? What's the advantages? I mean, why do you want to be based there?
Well, I think my time in Italy was great. I think it was very important for me when I moved to Italy to go there and train on hardback because I grew up riding sand and I was struggling finding confidence on hardback tracks. So it was good for me to train in Italy. Then I was also struggling with the heat. I got to Italy and I spent the summers there, and it really helped me. So after I think 5 years living in Italy, training always at the same track, at one point was a little bit too much. At one point, I thought I should make a change, come back to Belgium a little bit more, ride different tracks, different surface like sand, or here it's raining. Sometimes it's muddy. Sometimes, tracks get a little bit hotter, but, just something different, change. And the tracks at the GPs get really, really rough, and you never get a hardpack track as rough as a sand track. So I knew I wanted to come to Belgium to make myself also a little bit stronger. So yeah, I mean, when you go, for example, for training on a hardpack track and you start a day and it's flat, it can get a little bit rough. It can get maybe a little rut with little bumps, and maybe if you're lucky, some braking bumps. But on a sand track, if you start a day and it's flat, maybe it can end up and you still and you have like big braking bumps and big bumps all around the track. So pretty much every time you go for riding around here, you always get a bumpy track. And this is important for me, for my training. And then also spending so much time in Italy and not riding as like that much sand, or not so often. I felt like one of my other stronger points, that is the sand, was kind of like, I was struggling a little bit more because I didn't have a bike set up for that kind of stuff. So now that I came to Belgium, I can also set up the bike for sand tracks and try to get as much as possible of a strong point that is the sand. I'm a good sand rider, so a little bit of everything. I think, change, like variety of tracks is good, different conditions, and obviously we go back to Italy. We train also in Italy, but yeah, we spend a bit more time now in Belgium.
Two more quick ones. What is your weakness at the moment? Do you feel like you have one? Is there one part of your program that you can point to and be like, I need to get better there?
I need to get better on Supercross now.
Why?
No, I'm joking.
I thought you were doing MXGP next year.
I'm not joking, but it was just to make it a fun one. Weakness. I don't know. I mean, I think passing other riders it's a weakness. I can't pass guys really, really fast. Like, it takes me a bit of time because I always try to search for like a safety place and like much space. But I think Supercross helped me a little bit because, for example, in Argentina, I had to make a few passes and I was quick doing those passes. So I think it kind of helped me, but I think it's still one of my weakest points. I was lucky, let's say, in one way in Spain, I always start first, so I didn't have to pass anyone, only the lappers. So let's say I don't get, hopefully we don't get to deal so much with my weakness, that is, passing all the riders. So I think that's it. Because I'm feeling good physically. I have a good speed. I don't know what to say. Good starts.
Yeah, I would say you're pretty okay at the moment. Last question. I'm guessing you're still watching Supercross. Ever since you left, the tracks have become really soft, technical, rutty. I feel like that would have been great for you. So I'm guessing you're watching these rounds and thinking, I could have done good there. That looks like it would have been good for me. You must feel like you're missing out a little bit.
Yeah, in one way, yes. I mean, I'm like, would have been cool to be there. But at the same time, I'm already focused. So when I came back, I put all my focus in MXGP on my program here, and I'm focused on my racing. So yeah, it's like I can't be in two places. So yeah,
but just won his home GP.
Sorry?
Oh, you just won your home GP. I mean, dominated it. I mean, next to a championship, that's got to be the best thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm enjoying it so much. That's why I'm super focused on MXGP. I try to do it the best as I can here. And then we'll see what the future holds. But it's good also, I can see and learn, right? When I see all these races from Supercross, I also can learn from just watching and analyze all the riders. So we always take a lot of information, and maybe even for the future, that you can like adapt and see things, and then you can try. So, but yeah, all the tracks look quite ruddy lately. and I like ratty tracks, but I don't know if I like ratty Supercross tracks.
Well, Chase said that the sand section in Seattle made him feel like he was at Lommel. So maybe you would have been really fast there.
Sorry, the sand section?
Yeah, the sand section in Seattle at the weekend, Chase said it reminded him of Lommel. So you would have been fast there.
Yeah, but that's like a corner, right?
Yeah, but that's fine. You can work on the other stuff.
I mean, on a corner, you can make a big difference.
Okay. Any more questions, Adam, or are we done?
No, that's it. Thanks, Jorge.
Yeah, thanks, Jorge, for joining us. Good luck at Riola Sardo. We will see you at a race soon. Not in America.
Hey, Lewis, I have one question for you.
Okay, go.
I heard something. Who did you pick for Argentina to win?
Adam?
I think Adam knows it.
Who did I pick for Argentina? Jeffrey?
Yeah, you know who.
Yeah, maybe Jeffrey. No, I wouldn't have picked Jeffrey. Who did I pick for Argentina? I wouldn't have picked Jeffrey for round one.
I don't think it was Jorge.
No, but who would I have picked?
It wasn't me.
I wouldn't have picked Tim. Or did I pick Tim?
I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think I picked Ben
I'm
Watson.
just joking with you, but I thought you would pick me.
Okay, I'm very sorry about that. But how about my appearance on your Red Bull documentary? I did well there, didn't I?
Yeah, you told very good about me. I even sent you a text.
Yes. So it's not all bad.
No, all good.
Okay, that's good.
I'm just joking.
No, you have been amazing through 2 rounds. Honestly, it's unbelievable. I can't believe how well you're riding. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you at a race soon, I guess.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers, Jorge.
See you, mate. Bye. Okay, Adam.
That was my favorite. That's my favorite part.
Honestly,
of
I
the
wasn't
podcast
joking.
this
Who
year.
did I pick? Because I wouldn't have picked Hurlings for round 1. That would have been dumb.
Yeah, I think maybe
But I
Gajser,
obviously didn't pick Jorge.
Maybe Gajser because his record there is really good.
Yeah,
as
maybe
well.
it was Guy. I wouldn't have picked Roman because I'm not exactly sold that Roman can beat these guys.
Yeah, you're not a believer. Of Februar.
And I wouldn't have picked Jeffrey for round 1 because that would have been insane.
But in one way, it's kind of encouraging that riders maybe pay some attention to media.
Honestly, this guy is on my ass a lot about what I do and say. Good and bad. He's very much aware of what Lewis's movements are.
Well, that means he either respects you or he thinks you're a complete idiot and he's curious to hear what you said next.
I'm a complete idiot. No, that was good though. I would say that after that interview, little to no doubt he's going to Supercross.
Well, I mean, he dodged it brilliantly. And,
I don't know.
To
He
be honest,
laughed. He stalled. He said he needs to get better at Supercross.
Yeah, I think it's a given. I mean, there's all this talk about a 3-year deal with Kawasaki. I don't think people have been informed. You're even hearing rumors that nothing's been signed yet. But, I think it's clear that, he's conquered everything there is to do in Europe. And he had a taste of it. He liked it, in contrast to somebody like Clement Dessau, who went over to check out Supercross and decided that, that was a competition and an environment that wasn't for him. So, yeah, I think he's going to go. I just hope it's the right deal and the right circumstance for him.
Do you reckon Prado listens to this podcast? Because he said that you know.
Yeah, maybe. Or he's just checking
Jeffrey
out.
listens to this podcast. Maybe we need to be... We're shutting this down. There's too much risk. I can't... It's too much. This is the end. This is the end of this podcast.
I can't see Jeffrey listening to this podcast.
He told me he's listened. He told me he's listened a fair amount of times. Said he enjoys it.
Right. Okay.
We're fucked.
Well,
we are both out. Is there a job going in MotoGP? Because this is going to kill us both. Right.
But Jeffrey, come on the show. Tell us how much crap we talk. That would be nice.
Yeah, but now Jeffrey's going to come on, and Jeffrey will come on next time and go, Lewis, who did you say is riding amazing at the moment? And I was going to be like, Prado.
You've been targeted. You've been targeted by Prado. Maybe he'll come on the show and say, Adam, I couldn't give a shit about trying to finish the season with racing. I just want to be number 1. So there you go.
Just you wait until Ben Watson comes on here and goes, Lewis, I hear you've been chatting shit about me. Then it's all gone. Then it's all gone downhill.
That's never.
Well, no,
happened.
that's what I mean. That would be a major red flag. Right. The Prado, we kept Prado for longer than we were meant to as well. So thank you to Prado. That was a good interview, though, wasn't it? Like, I felt like he gave some very interesting insights. Also, I was going to ask him, don't know if I should say this because I don't know if he knows, MXGP not happy with Prado's interview with me when he was over here.
Why?
I know for a fact that shocker, I know for a fact that my interview with Jorge was escalated to the Monaco offices.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
But then, I mean, you're also saying that you're quite outspoken by the fact that MXGP should have been promoting Prado's exploits in Supercross more, right?
Well, that was their secondary concern. There was a more bigger concern that they had. We're shutting it all down. This is the retirement tour. Right, we have done not a lot and we need to move. Sewer, his best result ever in Argentina on a 450, best result ever in intu-Xanadu on a 450. He's not exactly happy, I'll say that much. The only comment I have on Sewer is I messaged him and said, this was your best Spain ever on a 450. Or no, this is your best Prado's got me all fucked up. This was your best intu-Xanadu ever. And he hit me back with, no, last year I went 3.84. And I replied with, yeah, we're not counting qualifying races. Sewer.
Well, you should do. I mean, they carry points.
Yeah, he told me that I should count qualifying races, and I told him he's a fucking idiot.
I think he has. Oh well, we won't be seeing Jeremy on the show again soon. But he has a point. I mean, now there's points involved. But I mean, you got to give him time with the bike. I mean, I wouldn't say he's completely in sync with it. He's not enjoying it. It seems. He's not sort of the Yamaha Jeremy Sewer. So. I think if he's still a little bit indifferent and not happy and still he's sort of faded back to being this top 5, top 6 guy by sort of, the second half of the season, then there's questions that have to be asked about why the bike hasn't been developed more or why he's not changed in style more for it. I think those are reasonable observations. But I mean, at the moment, it's still too early, I think.
Yeah, we won't be having Sewer on this podcast for the foreseeable, I will tell you that much. Calvin Vlanderen was 6th overall, and he missed, as I said last time, he missed sometime in January with a small injury. So this is a promising start for him. Ironic that after years of Yamaha ignoring his brilliant results for the manufacturer, he's now carrying them on his back. He's their last man standing. So yeah, just a funny turn of events. Who would have seen that coming? But Rio Losado, the next round, Todd Kellett, who most of you will have never heard of, he's a beach race rider. He will be racing a factory Yamaha for that round only. Deep sand, they obviously believe that he can do relatively well. I mean, the races aren't 4 hours long, so that will be a weakness for him. But yeah, that's coming up. He's obviously filling in for Renaux.
Yeah, I'd love to know how that came around. I mean, how can Todd sort of go from relative obscurity on an international level? Fantastic beach racer, of course, and came back from a big smash at the Western Beach Race, I think. I can't remember how many years ago. But I mean, that's not really a name you would put into a factory MXGP team straight away. But fair play to him. I hope he doesn't get overawed by the occasion and just pins it like he's on a beach somewhere.
Well, the races are going to be too short for him. I don't know what Yamaha expect from this, but yeah, clearly they believe there's some substance there. Renaux is out. Honestly, I believe he will miss the rest of this year. The foot injury that he sustained in Spain last year, ironically, it was operated on, but it's just not right. Jeffrey Hurlings is very vocal. He had the same injury. He's very, very, very vocal that this could be a stinger for the rest of Renault's career. Hurlings knows only too well how just awkward and kind of horrific it is. So Renaux is going under the knife again to have another surgery in the hope that it will unearth some magic.
Yeah, that's desperately sad news for him. I was there, Spain, last year when he did the injury, and Jeffrey was talking about it, and he kind of sympathized and said, he's like you mentioned, Lewis, he's been there. And he's been through the whole process of healing from that, because it's a very complicated area of the body in terms of movement and the sort of network of bones and ligaments at the lower part of the leg. If anyone's hurt their foot or their ankle, then they might sort of know what I'm talking about. But I mean, for Renaux, it's a big setback. I mean, he had quite a serious shoulder injury a few years ago, recovered from that, of course, to be a world champion. But yeah, this is not good for him or for Yamaha. And you just hope that he can finally just put like a halt on everything and get himself sorted out before feeling that he needs to come back.
This is major background information that I will probably get a call from, but Yamaha have my number.
Yamaha,
They have my
love
number.
you anyway.
Yep, they have my number, so it's fine. They can reach out to me. So we know that Febvre was likely to go to Yamaha last year, but Renaux kind of put the stop on that. Renaux was quite adamant that he is not sharing a truck with Romain, and Renaux is very much, how do you say this nicely? He very much likes the number one position at a team and requires the attention that goes along with that. So he effectively stopped Yamaha picking up Febvre, who now they kind of desperately could have done with. And I hear that in November, Renaux was told by a doctor that he should rest for a while because the foot was kind of was teeter-tottering on the edge of being a major issue, and rest would sort it out. And I hear that he didn't exactly follow that advice to the book, which is why he's now in this situation somewhat. Which I just wonder if Yamaha are like, maybe we put our eggs in the wrong basket here.
It's going a bit too far, I think.
Yeah, okay, too far.
I mean,
Sorry,
too
far.
Yeah, two reactions there. One, that's one of those hot gossipy things that one rider's blocked a move to another team where, until sort of Maxime actually goes on the record and says, I didn't want Romain in the same squad. And as far as I know, I haven't seen any sort of statement or interview or whatever pointing that direction. I mean, it's a cool kind of story, especially between Frenchmen and, two leading riders from their country. But it does seem a little bit catty. I mean, also if Renaux thinks and believes, if he believes in himself enough, then it shouldn't matter who's in the team next to him. And the second thing, about the medical advice, of course, how many times have riders ignored medical advice, said, it's going to be a 6-week healing period and they're back doing something in 4 or 5 weeks or whatever. And I think if Renaux knows his body, like I said, he's been through a broken arm when he was racing EMX 125, I think. He separated his shoulder when he was racing the EMX 250. He knows his body better than anybody. So, if he's deciding to carry on riding when he's been advised not to, then of course it's something that's on his shoulders, but then he knows.
Yeah, just curious. And remember, of course, Renaux was Renaux was entertaining offers from Red Bull KTM last year before renewing his Yamaha deal. So just it's interesting, I don't feel like the fans know this information, but when you consider all of this, it makes the scope of Renault's situation very interesting because it kind of affects a lot of people.
Lewis, I know you're a big fan of Jago Gertz's social media updates. I mean, what's the latest on him?
Yeah, I don't know.
Has there been any news?
I had this conversation with someone not too long ago. I have long been of the opinion that an elbow injury is the worst kind of injury. That's up there as top 5 injuries that you don't want to get. And someone told me that it's not that big a deal. But I wouldn't expect to see him back until Lockett. Maybe that's a bit too far. But, just before Indonesia, maybe. Yeah, I don't know what Yamaha are going to do because they're going to have Todd Kellett for Riola Sardo, it seems like. I'm 99% sure. But I would believe that they're going to need a guy after that, and there is no one available. I can't think of a single option that's entertaining unless they want to right their wrongs and give Ben Watson another shot, seeing as they so cruelly destroyed him back in the day.
I mean, he's contracted to a certain Italian factory,
That's
but
true.
They missed out on Van der Moosdijk, and it's just, but now, like you said earlier on when you started talking about him, this is Calvin Valandren's chance. He is now number one rider in a factory team. So let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and Calvin is on a 1-year deal, I do believe. So this will only help his leverage to stay in that factory status position. I just want to give a quick tip of the hat again. I did this after round 1, but Kevin Horgmo has been a revelation. If you had told me at the start of the year that Kevin Horgmo won't finish in the top 10 at all this year, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. He's been in the top 10 2 out of 2 times. This is next to my amazement at Prado, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Prado, nice comment. Horgmo comes next, as I just can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe how good he is. A tip of the hat to him. And also a tip of the hat to Ben Watson for surviving the Spanish GP for the first time since 2021.
Yeah, this is a track that I think might have given him some nightmares. I mean, if it was slightly faster and a little bit less rutty, like sort of Turkey tends to be, then it would have been absolutely horrific. But it was a good performance, 10th overall for the Brit on the beta. But there was 4 Hondas in the top 10, Lewis. I mean, that's quite a streak, including Kevin Hogmo, who's like you say, having a good season. I thought Valentin Guillot started very well, put himself in the mix, when he wasn't flying down the track. But he was another one just behind Paul Jonas in the overall as well. And Guillot just keeps coming back for more. I mean, this guy's got quite a story, I think.
Yeah, don't forget that Guillot was out of MXGP for a year. Like, he was done. And now he's just like, yeah, that's Guillot. He's solid. You can rely on Guillot. It makes no sense. Quick note on Jonas, actually, seeing as you brought him up. He's working with Stefan Everts. For some reason, I've known about this since day one. I've been keeping it a secret because I thought it was a secret. And I found out yesterday that it's not a secret. So, sorry, everyone. I could have told you that a long time ago. But, yeah, I thought it was a secret.
What happened to Glenn Koldenoff in the second moto? I didn't see.
He crashed in the corner before the finish, broke a lever, Polosport. And actually, I should do my other ad reads. A lot going on. Prado's got me all flustered. And then he was disqualified. He finished 20th and was disqualified for outside assistance.
So what does outside assistance rank as these days?
Someone else picks up your bike, helps you pick up your bike, helps you hold your bike, like any sort. Basically, I class it as another person touches your bike, you could potentially be disqualified.
Right, okay. So, I mean, if you crash with another rider and the rider has to throw your bike off to separate them, then you could, in theory, be disqualified, as we've seen in Supercross recently.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Goodness, okay, harsh.
Yeah, good. Well done to everyone in MXGP. You all did very well.
And note also Isaac Gifting, the rider who vanquished Ducati's debut in Mantova in the Italian Championship, spoiled their party somewhat. He was 17th overall. It looked like he didn't really get the start. So I'm not sure if there was a bigger story there, some crashes, but it was just one of the names that popped out from the overall classification.
If Yamaha want to give Isaac Gifting a fill-in ride until Gertz comes back, I would not be opposed to it. I believe that I have long beat the drum of there's not a lot of talent or exciting talent coming into MXGP, and Isaac Gifting certainly didn't have hype behind him. But you know what? If we're going to try and improve the situation, let's give him a shot, and maybe he turns into something and we have a bit of a story there.
Lewis, these people have contracts. They can't just jump out.
Yeah, but he's on a Yamaha team, so they can work something out. The JK Racing Yamaha have like 17 riders across all classes, so they're fine. They can just watch WMX where they have like 17 riders. It's fine.
I think you should do your ad read now before we talk about some 250s.
Yes. Remember the days when I used to do it at the start and be very organised, and now you've made me forget.
Well, then, people tended to miss the first 2 minutes of our podcast because they were skipping through. But actually, your unbreakable lever with Polysport, have we done that? Is that finished?
Yeah, I did that at the start. Why? Do you want to tell us more about it?
No. I have a breakable lever story, but I'll save it for the next time when you're mentioning Polysport.
Okay, well, let me tell you about All Balls Racing. Do you have an All Balls story?
No.
Okay. The All Balls Racing Group is a combination of the finest aftermarket power sports brand from across the US and Europe, combining OEM-level engineering and design capabilities with a world-class supply chain makes them the largest global supplier of critical aftermarket hard parts for the power sports industry. You can trust the All Balls Racing Group to provide the exact fitment and best quality in the industry at a price that fits your budget. All Balls Racing have everything to keep you running. So in fact, maybe Koldenoff could have gone to All Balls Racing to keep himself running. Me and Glenn, we are jiving with these ad reads this week. Right, on to MX2, where my amazement at Prado is similar to my sheer disbelief at how Kai de Wolf does not look like the same rider. He looks like a completely new man. Better late than never, I would say. But yeah, this is... I spent time just almost studying Kai. And the entire time I was doing that, I was just like, this is not Kai de Wolf. It was shocking to me.
Well, in some ways it was. I mean, he still has that wonderfully loose riding style, but there seems to be a degree of measure to it. He actually has the strength and there's a bit more control. which I'm sure is extremely encouraging to sort of Rasmus and the rest of the Husqvarna guys, because they must have been banging their heads on the tables at points last year when, De Wolf was flying and setting fastest laps, but then just crashing, making stupid mistakes and not bringing it home. But to go 1-2 in Spain on that track, I mean, he is also going to be a big shoe-in for Rio Losado. I know you love Simon Lagenfelder, Lewis, but I think De Wolf could potentially go 3 in a row.
Yeah, I would expect him to. And it's unbelievable. 1 GP win before this year, a checkered past with injuries and subpar form, and just not meeting expectations. Honestly, as I said in our preview, if this year didn't go well, I believe he would have ended up as a write-off. But yeah, is Kai de Wolf now the favorite for this championship? I might be there. I need to see. You know what? I'll reserve judgment until Trentino. Rio Losado, he should win, so that we'll all be very excited still. Trentino will be a test. If he's on the podium there, then I've seen enough.
Yeah. On the other hand, if he comes out of Rio Losado and he makes some sort of error and he loses the red plate or whatever through a disaster, then you're going to think, well, okay, this is usual Kai. We're back to square one. But like you say, he should be looking at the podium for sure in the sand. And then, like you said, after Arco de Trento, which is going to be another sort of hard pack, much more stony and slick compared to Madrid, then yeah, he's in. He's going to be, about time. He's going to be considered as a title contender.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I guess his biggest weakness will be his starts potentially, because he is a big guy. But then I know that Husqvarna have made some great developments with their FC 250 recently, so maybe that isn't even an issue. Is it time for me to admit that maybe I believed in Simon Lagenfelder a little bit too much, and maybe he's just one of the top guys and not the next Jeffrey Hurlings like I seem to have been yelling about for years?
He is not the next Jeffrey Hurlings, but he is an extremely good rider and who is going to, be in fighting for the championship this year. So I think your hype is, in a good place. I mean, this is the second GP in a row he's finished runner-up. That's championship contender form, if you like. And he seems to be a bit better in second motos, Lewis. A little bit, less mistake prone.
Yeah.
So,
He went 1-1 at this GP last year, so I'm comparing it to that. But then, you compare it to his start to last year, and he was all over the place. He was a hot mess with the pressure and expectation on him. So maybe this is fine. Maybe he does catch fire around the time that Spain was last year, which was May-ish. So,
yeah, and he's led the most laps, and he's got 2 podium trophies. I think he's looking all right. But I mean, to say he's the next Hurlings is a bit of a stretch.
I just did not, and I was taking the piss with that. Although, if you want to tell me he's the next Prado, I could see that. Small guy, whole shots. Gas?
Yeah. I mean, Prado was far more prolific from the first days in MX2. I think Simon, but then as we've like to bang the drum, the riders develop in different times, and we shouldn't be endlessly pursuing and idolizing these freaks of natures like Jet Lawrence or Jorge Prado, Jeffrey Hurlings, Ken Roxon. Even in MotoGP now, there's one called Pedro Acosta who's 19 years old and finished on the podium in his second race. I think we love to do it because we see these people as extraordinary. But, I think we have to be a little bit... I mean, the stories around the other riders are just as good.
Yeah, agreed. Andrea Adamo. So, no secret now, he had a kind of horrific off-season just battling with the bike setup. Leaving Argentina, he still was very unhappy. He's obviously stabilized that situation somewhat now. But, yeah, that's kind of why he entered Argentina so down in the dumps, to put it simply. Just couldn't find a feeling with the KTM, which is bizarre because it's not an all-new bike. But yeah, really, of all the Austrian riders, Adamo was a bit of an issue as far as setup is concerned. Maybe progress has been made. Maybe this will come on. A second moto win was obviously promising, and he was quite commanding with it, ish. I mean, Kai did crash, but yeah, positive step.
Yeah, I saw him quite aggressive or assertive, especially in Spain. It was like, okay, my season's starting now. I'm getting a move on. I don't really have any confirmation on what KTM have changed for this year. I could only assume it's suspension. Maybe he's trying something different with WP. but he's still working to find that setup. First moto, I think he was 6th, but second moto, that win, I think, has given him a big boost of confidence. And of course, that's Red Bull KTM's first podium trophy of the season, and we're used to seeing them in the top 3 or on the rostrum in each class, pretty much every Grand Prix. So, and on that note, I think we should give a nod to Liam Everts, who returned from an injured thumb, actually an operated thumb, and took a top 5. I think even the Belgian himself was quite surprised by that one, but there's that kind of Everts consistency already starting from his first Grand Prix this year. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he also pulls himself up into, high up the championship standings.
Would I be absolutely insane to say that Liam Everts will beat Adamo in the championship?
No, because it's still too early. So I think that's perfectly feasible and possible. But
I believe that Liam Everts is that much better that he can miss a round and still top Adamo.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, whether he can actually be a championship guy is...
No, I think it's too late for that. It's too late for that. But he can beat Adamo.
After one round?
He missed it.
Yeah, but, you don't think the Wolf is going to miss maybe 2 motos throughout the rest of the season
but
for some reason?
Simon. Let's get that hype train started again. I was off it for 5 minutes and I'm back.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Goodness. Simon has now transitioned into the next Stefan Everts or Tony Cairoli.
You know what? We've never seen a rider as good as Simon Lagenfelder. I'm putting that out there. That's going to be our quote on YouTube on the thumbnail to get people clicking.
Very quickly, because you keep mentioning other riders, who is the best 250 GP rider you've ever seen?
Hurlings. It's got to be Hurlings, hasn't it?
Yeah?
It's Hurlings, Prado, Cairoli.
So you're saying he's better than what you saw with Roxon on the Suzuki or Marvin Musquin on Ben Townley?
I feel like
Tommy Sell.
Tommy did enter my mind, but he didn't win a championship and he got beat by Hurlings. So, but Tommy is in the top 6. I do not believe that Roxon stuck around long enough for us to see Roxon at his first full year. He was beaten by Marvin, and then even in his title-winning season, it wasn't like he was walking the competition.
He comprehensively won Grand Prix on 2 different bikes, and there's not that many riders in that group that you would consider that have done that. That has to be figured.
I would argue that he never really won on a Suzuki in a massively dominant fashion. He was kind of always the bridesmaid on a Suzuki and picking up the pieces.
Yeah, but look at the opposition he had.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And as I said, in his title-winning year, he wasn't the most dominant, but he was going up against Hurlings and Tommy.
I was on a Red Bull KTM then, so I mean that was arguably the best bike in the class. But on a kind of underpowered Suzuki, was obviously a little bit glitchy as well. There was a couple of times where it broke down and cost him points. I think Roxon has to be in that conversation. I would say it was the guy we had on our show. I mean, for me, Jorge Prado, the way he was riding in his championship winning years on the 250 was another level. I mean, you combine the starts as well. I mean, it was phenomenal to watch. I mean, Hurlings, of course, has a ridiculous win record, so he has to be right up there with him as well. And I think Marvin Musquin, purely because of the way he shifted the goalposts and just showed how, a 254 stroke at the turn of the decade, 2009, 10, 11, that period when he sort of transitioned straight over to the US was something special as well.
Did I tell you that I spoke to Marvin a couple of weeks ago and told him that I want to write a comprehensive story on the Honda KTM switch, the lawsuit, etc. And he said he's able to talk about it now, and he would be more than happy to.
Oh, okay. That'll be a good story.
So I need to speak to Roger and see if he'll talk about it, which I'm guessing not.
No, I mean, Roger was happy to talk about it at the time.
Oh, okay.
It was a really big thing in Grand Prix. In the middle of 2009, I can remember the time, he turned up to Sweden and, there was a junction put on him so he couldn't race. I mean, you had Honda and KTM having press conferences. It was, it was some fiery stuff. You don't really see that in racing anymore.
No, he accepted the red plate in a plain T-shirt because he couldn't be affiliated to any, that's just exciting to even think about.
Yeah, I mean, KTM were also, the perception at the time was, look at Red Bull KTM getting their checkbook out again and just signing the rider who's leading the championship, the best one there. after sort of Honda and NGS has sort of brought Marvin out of, excuse me, like the SX Tour and some, promising sort of European outings. But, it really wasn't the case. And Pit Byra was quite emotional and angry, just saying how Honda basically let down this young rider, hadn't really given him what they promised. And, it's kind of like the situation with Van der Moosdijk. If you're a loose end, you've been cast off a little bit by the team, they haven't met their compromises or their promises, and you're a free agent, then, Red Bull KTM at the time, I think Sean Simpson was injured. So they had effectively a spare bike going next to Jeffrey Hurlings there. And, it was Jeffrey Hurlings in 2009.
Yeah, did they have a third? It was Rui? Rui, Sean, and who was the third MX2 rider? Was there one? No, they can't. There must not have been.
Raid the memory banks.
It was definitely Rui and Sean.
Yeah, Hurlings came in the following year, 2010. So we're talking about the second half of the 2009 season. I'm trying to think. It might have been Rui.
I feel like they started the year with 3 riders in each class. And it was definitely Rui and it was definitely Sean. But I don't know if they had another MX2 rider before Marvin.
I think it was Nagel in MXGP as well.
Nagel,
we'll have to
Tony,
have a look. We'll look it up.
Nagel, Tony, and maybe it was just 2 and 2. Huh.
Yeah.
So
that was
actually,
my tangent. Sorry.
You're gonna have to be involved in that story actually, because you were living it and I wasn't. I was in school. So yeah.
Okay.
And also, we can't have a conversation about the best 250 rider ever without mentioning Ben Watson's Lommel and Trentino victories.
Oh, goodness. Then you entered in what was the best British 250 rider.
Still Tommy.
Consider Steven Sword.
Still Tommy, but Ben definitely is nipping at Tommy's heels. We should get Tommy on this podcast. There's a lot of people I want to get on this podcast.
Yeah, Cole Nunn was awesome on the 125 in the MX2 era. So there's a good sort of British spread there. I mean, he's Ben's going to be up against some opposition.
Well, it's Ben. Ben can. If any teams are listening to this, Ben's contract is up at the end of this year, so you may want to pick up that phone. Lucas Coonan was upright, which is good.
3-4.
I feel like we can accept that. Bad starts, but he was upright. So somewhat bucked the trend, and that's okay. Now we wait to see what the sand brings, where to be honest, that will be an Astan Husqvarna brawl.
And his twin Sasha took the second motor whole shot, but just looking just as ballistic and haphazard as ever, has to be said.
Honestly, at what point? It's a sticky situation because the Coonan's father is like the poster child for schoolboy dads, and like I don't think people even know that before the Nissan and Red Bull deals came about, they were almost going to start their own team because he demanded that they both be under the same tent. Like, he was unhappy that they had been offered a Red Bull KTM deal and a Astan Husqvarna deal because he wanted them together. And it's like, you've just been offered 2 of the best deals in the sport. Like, what? Anyway.
2 of the best teams, yeah.
So what happens when, like, does there come a time where Austria are like, I'm not sure that we want this one anymore? I mean, I believe they're both under contract to go to America through 2026, so maybe it's a moot point, but it's definitely entered my mind a lot.
I think both of them, obviously Sasha more than Lucas at the moment, definitely filed under your favorite description of fast but crashy. And, that's obviously going to fade away because they're either, Sasha's going to get tired of potentially injuring himself, or he's just going to sort of feel out where his natural limits are. And if the speed is still there, then he's going to be, a little fireball because he has the ability to push that motorcycle. It reminds me a little bit of sort of like an Austin Faulkner, in the early days, where he can just like really just pin the thing and hold on for all he's worth. But yeah, it's a good point, Lewis. I think the short-termism that we're also guilty of in racing means you look at the Coonans and think, well, is the hype justified? Should, all the investment and some of the hassle, the rumored hassle around the way the family operate and their dynamic, is it worth it? But, I think you got to give them time. Still too young. If they were sort of 19, 20 years old, you would have to think, guys, how's this setup going to work long term? But, and also you have to forgive, the father as well, Rafa, because, they are still essentially kids who should almost still be in school.
Yeah, that's fair. Lucas is definitely a star of the future. I just feel like the jury is out on Sasha. Benison hasn't done much thus far to convince me, and I presume you, that he is a title contender. To be honest, this will raise questions about his long-term future if this doesn't improve. I don't know what the future holds for him, because I would imagine he's got kickers in his deal that if he wins a title... Well, I know he had something in his deal that if he wins a title, he automatically gets a Star Racing ride. But I would imagine there's similar commitments to an MXGP ride and whatnot. And if he continues to flounder as he is with the occasional win, I don't know what his long-term future and sustainability is. So that's my point.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I don't. It's so boring to keep saying it, but I think you do need to give him time as well, because 2023 was so messy in terms of injuries and comebacks and confidence. Yeah, you need to give him a good half a season in terms of building back up to some of the skill and potential that we saw before. But there has to be a time, maybe in the next 3 or 4 rounds, where if he's not picking up those podium results, then the title is going to go out the window.
Yep. Camden McClellan was great. Well, maybe not great, but he was really good. And I definitely have him tipped as a rider who could do great things. His Triumph teammate, Mikkel Harrop, had a technical issue in the second moto, the first for Triumph in MXGP. So I feel like that's somewhat noteworthy. To be expected, and it wasn't terminal. He finished the race, but had to limp it home. And yeah, I believe that's all I've got on MX2. Prado took up a lot of our time, but as he should. Did anything stand out to you besides the result sheet, or on the result sheet from Spain? Any MXGP burning thoughts?
No, not really. I still want, every time I flick on MXGP, I mean, I get messages from people saying, they've watched the races, they've enjoyed the races and stuff. I just still find it very antiquated in terms of the presentation, the TV side of it. Please do something different, MXGP. Get some drones really following these guys around the track. I don't know, just try and mix it up and update it a little bit. But it's when I'm talking about the TV package, that is. But we'll see what happens to us in the next races.
I did take questions from fans, but we have gone for too long, I'm afraid. So we will try and figure this out. If we're having riders every week, then we're going to be very pushed for time without
come on, let's quickly do 3. Pick 3 questions.
Okay, I was looking after your time. Okay.
No, go on.
Look at the Paddock Pass podcast guy. Just really giving it up.
You can probably see on the camera it's getting dark here.
Craig Spencer, 233, said, "Is Mitch Evans still alive?" It's a very appropriate question. Certainly not insane. He has washed his hands of the sport for this year at least. Last time I spoke to him, and to be honest, we should probably get him on this podcast as well. Last time I spoke to him, he was open to the idea of potentially looking for a ride in 2025, but realistically, you take a year out, I don't know who's going to take you. And Mitch Evans is of such a stature that I can't see him riding for 10 grand for a British Championship team. So I don't know where he goes from here, honestly. Sad.
I also heard a rumor that somebody wanted him for a team manager role. There's a chance he could be like a coach or an advisor.
What?
So there you go. Yep.
Like a top team, or like Lewis Phillips Racing level?
More Lewis Phillips Racing level, I believe.
Oh, well, that is a good level, I have to say. So sad, honestly. I'm going to reach out to him actually today, because I haven't spoken to him in a while, and I don't like these guys. Do you feel this way? Like, I try and keep in touch when I don't need stuff, because I don't want them to feel like I only contact them when I need stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
so like,
it depends on your relationship, really. I mean, it's you can't talk to everybody. Sometimes I try to members of my family.
Like Sunday night, I just text like 12 MXGP riders and just said, "How was it? You good? Like, are you happy?" And then I called Sewer a fucking idiot.
You might not get a text from him for a while.
Let's see here. There's a question about the MXGP-TV coverage. Do you want that, or do you want me to move on?
Can you ask it to yourself?
Okay, Kelton Guiver said, more statement than a question. What does MXGP need to change about their broadcast? From watching Supercross, MXGP just seems like the same thing over and over. I wanted to say this, actually. Did you hear... I can't remember what race, but at one point, Paul was talking about like, oh, we first came to Spain, or this track in 2020. We came here during the pandemic, except he didn't call it a pandemic. He said, we came here for the first time during the scamdemic.
Oh, wow.
And
Really?
which I don't have an opinion on. I was just shocked that this was transmitted. But I believe that underlines where we're at with MXGP. Like, we're not exactly paying close attention to what's the details. No?
Yeah.
If a MotoGP commentator said that, is he fired immediately?
Goodness, it's hard to say. Oh, I mean, yeah. But the problem is that Paul Malin's probably the best motocross commentator internationally. I mean, there's nobody with the amount of knowledge, both of the sport and of having done the sport. And the guy works incredibly hard of all his statistics. And you've got to admire Paul for all the hours he puts in, and also being able to ramp up the excitement of, moments, crashes, overtaking moves and stuff like that. But, I guess that's his opinion. I mean, if he's okay to state that on MXGP, then he's kind of got away with it. But yeah, I don't know. We are quite sensitive to what things that, commentators and people on TV say, right? I mean, why do people have to apologize for somebody swearing? I mean, this is not the 1950s and 60s anymore where, I mean, do people still write in letters and send emails of complaint because a rider's come off the track, had a bad result and said that, yeah, it wasn't my fucking day or that result was shit? I mean, you have to be somebody a little bit odd to have to, to be that offended to write into networks or broadcasters and say, why is sportsman swearing on a broadcast? So let's not try to be so scared of opinions.
Did you see the new studio show setup?
I haven't yet, no.
Baffling that we've left the broadcast alone for what feels like 72 years. And we've spent approximately 2 million euros on the studio show.
Okay. Oh, that's a good step. I'll go and have a look actually on YouTube after you've had this.
I don't know if it is, because the studio show is, if you, like, I immediately looked at it as a businessman, and because I am now a businessman, and I went to social media to see how much traction the studio show gets. No one cares. So,
oh, wow, okay.
Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh, but it's not, it's not driving 25,000 people every week. So it's just confusing to me that we've decided that needs to be, and it's beautiful. It's very jazzed up, but just surprised me.
Generally, I apologize if somebody in Infront is having meetings at the start of every year saying, let's do this, let's do that. And there's a whole bucket of ideas, but there's no sort of budget or manpower to execute them. But, look at the possibilities with drones these days. Get those in the broadcast. I mean, onboard cameras, is there no way to get any kind of camera technology on a bike or a rider, even just for a lap or two? I don't know. Lisa Leyland. Lisa's someone who's been in the sport for so long now, and she knows everybody, knows the riders. They know her. She has confidence with people. Get her doing more than just like pre-grid interviews. There has to be some ways that you can extend the coverage and make it a little bit more attractive than this formulaic picture postcard and everything else that's involved in it. So that's but I'm keep repeating myself, so I'll try not to
no, but we push for change, Adam. That's what we do. We are the rebel rousers.
But thank you for the question about it.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I completely forgot we were doing questions. One more. James Petch 195, next phenom to come out of MXGP, if there even is one. I felt like this was a good question because we've spoken a lot about how there is a drought on its way. And honestly, there's a unibrow guy who won a MX250, but that was a joke. I mean, he does have a unibrow, but Valerio Larson.
Yeah, what's your definition of a phenom?
A Hurlings, Roxon, Prado, I presume. Who's going to grab MXGP by the balls for the next 10 years, I guess?
Goodness.
I would say Ben Watson, but he probably doesn't have 10 years left.
Maybe like a Kaz Volk, or we're looking at very young riders. Marc-Antoine Rossi.
Yeah, Marc-Antoine Rossi. Kaz Volk does seem to have some sort of stuff about him.
Elzinga, still quite young.
Okay, you've gone off a deep end there. We were doing well. You may as well. No.
I mean, to be honest, if you look at it in terms of potential to age, then you have to say someone like Lucas Kuhnen.
He'll be in America in 2 years.
Well, you don't know that, do
the
you?
Contract signed, Adam. They're gone.
Yeah, but Lewis, if he does a Maxime Renaux, then he's not going to go anywhere, is he? Also, he could fall in love. We've seen this with the riders before as well, where they suspend their plans because, they've met someone and they don't want to uproot their life and go.
Well, the contract's done. That's all I can tell you. And Kai de Wolf wants to go to America. Yeah, Marc-Antoine Rossi, I guess. So I guess we should start becoming friends with him.
Yeah, the Phenom, difficult to say. There's nobody bursting through quite like Hurlings or Roxon.
And you know what? If you want to say that Prado was the last Phenom to burst through, that was a long time ago now. Like, we have had a long time without another Prado-level talent.
2016. Yeah, and then you can go back. You can look at Christophe Porcel, Tony Cairoli, Tommy Searle. There's not many riders who are sort of plunging into their first Grand Prix season and then making a massive impact. I mean, Andrea Adamo took a full season, really. Liam Everts as well. But, I don't want to be dismissive of these guys because, I do think we are guilty of, throwing riders away too quickly.
I'm guilty of loving Prado too much. That's anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I am just on Prado non-stop. So if someone could pass that on, that'd be great. I need to tell you about EVS Sports before we go. EVS Sports, the original protective gear company. They have been protecting champions and riders for almost 40 years and do not plan to stop anytime soon. What started out as a knee brace has evolved into a full line of protective gear to help keep riders safe while they do what they love. Check out evs-sports.com to see the same protective gear that pros RJ Hampshire, Kyle Chisholm, Axel Hodges and Travis Pastrana all wear every day. My final thought, you've obviously seen that Lando Norris is sponsoring Lottie Van Drunen.
Yeah, I'd heard about this, but I just think he's a complete tool, so I've got no interest in anything he does.
Oh, well, there's our clip that's going to send us to the mainstream. Well, what I was going to say is I hear that's actually worth a lot of money. Like, apparently I just thought it was a sticker and like a cool collaboration. Apparently it's worth significantly more money than the typical motocross sponsor.
So he's got a sports management company, I assume. And
yeah, it's like a content marketing company, kind of.
Right, and then they've just cherry picked, I guess they looked at Lottie and thought, right, she's the leading female dirt bike racer, and they've signed her up.
Yeah, but I'm actually low-key angry about it because, like, if they'd picked Sewer, that could have been so good for our sport because he's a great spokesman, he's funny, like, that could have really done a lot for MXGP. I'm not being funny, but I don't really want... Okay, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say, to put it nicer, I don't really want WMX to be our poster child for the series.
Yeah, but maybe you just have to look at it in terms of being outside. I mean, there was a call, wasn't there, on the Pulp Show about, taking sport to the mainstream and how people would perceive Supercross as being like really freestyle. Dirt bike is something that sort of goes up and flips around in the air and then lands, and that's it, and everyone claps. It's nothing to do with the racing. I don't know if Lottie Van Drunen is doing something with Lando Norris and Formula One, and she's taking motocross racing into a wider context, then that's only a good thing, because then people are going to get curious about it and then think, well, hang on a minute, what's sort of the male version, or what's the sort of world championship version of this? Where's the central competition? It's like women's football as well. I mean, if people are really into that, then if they see that Manchester City or Arsenal football clubs are winning in women's soccer, then maybe they'll want to look at the Premier League for the men's side of it.
Yeah, if you want me to get really like professional about it, okay, say this attracts a new fan and they're like, oh, F1, this is the motocross version of F1, roger that. And WMX has 5 rounds. You're not going to retain attention. Whereas if you have sewer, you can quickly be like, okay, this really is the motocross version of F1. Like, oh, they're racing in this country next week. Oh, there's a weekend off. You know, like, no one's going to grasp it. But it's fine. I'm happy for everyone involved. I will tell you this.
But also, sorry, go on.
I have reached out to the Quadrant people and told them that they can make a bigger impact in motocross if they think about it better. And
Simon Ben Watson.
And that I'd be happy to advise on some strong motocross moves that would really catapult their brand. So stay tuned.
Oh, Lewis, if you bring Lando Norris on this podcast, I'm retiring.
No, I don't believe the email went to Lando Norris. I don't believe. I believe it went to someone in an office, but I haven't had a reply yet, so I don't know if I'll get it.
And just the point that I think the American promotional philosophy to sports is to have as much of it as possible all year round. That's why I think you see Liberty Media stretching Formula One to something ridiculous, like was it 24, 25, maybe in 26 races, why you see so many races in NASCAR, why even though the NFL season is relatively short, you have the draft and you have a lot of other kind of coverage that sort of stretches through the year. Basketball season, of course, is massive. There's so many matches in baseball. And, I even just from sort of talks and stuff I hear in MotoGP, there's a concern that when the MotoGP season finishes at the end of November and doesn't start again until the end of February, the tests, start in February, then, the sport is essentially dormant. There's no coverage, there's nothing going on, there's no, I don't think from a marketing perspective, you can let something drop off the earth like that. There always has to be content on the go. And this is not such a problem, I don't think, in AMA sphere, because you do have that from the first weekend of January, pretty much all the way up until that very small off season the guys have. But for MXGP, it's obviously a big thing, and for some of the other European sports. So whether it's a good direction to head in, I don't know. But I do think there is obviously some validity to the point that, off seasons still have to be productive in showing the sports and showing the athletes.
Well, this all circles right back around to the promoter needs to consider this and find ways to keep the fire burning. We can barely keep the fire burning mid-season or in a bin. Right. Any final thoughts?
No. Have you done all your reads?
Yep. Thank you again to Polisport, All Balls Racing, and EVS. A potential new sponsor coming next time. Someone reached out after seeing this on YouTube for the first time. And I should say, I didn't mention, we are on YouTube now. So if you'd rather watch than listen, you can do that. Some advancements this week. We had the highlights playing from Argentina and Spain. We had a carousel of photos when we were talking about Hurlings. There was a carousel of Hurlings photos and whatnot. So it's advancing step by step. Prado was on screen.
Yeah, apologies for the accents, everyone. I can't help our Englishness.
Yeah, I'm honestly, maybe I shouldn't say this. So tell me if I should cut this out. I've started doing like a course to get my accent to go away.
What, to be standard pronunciation? I mean,
I
you've
don't
got
know.
that pretty much anyway.
I found like a YouTube tutorial that you follow each day to make my accent less harsh.
I think that's ridiculous, though.
Okay,
it's part of to keep your Britishness.
Prado hates me. Everyone hates me. Prado hates me. I need to check. Maybe Prado will like me more if my accent isn't as bad. I don't know what he wants from me.
I don't think it's the accent. I think it's your prediction skills. In fact, saying Christian Craig is going to finish on the podium at ONA in the Motocross of the Nations, I think is your low point.
Funnily enough, I don't believe that's what Prado has an issue with.
Just wait until the Nations come around again and think twice about your predictions before you make it, so you can get yourself out of that hole.
Well, I'd like to apologise. How like at the end of the Oscars they have like an in memoriam of like and a list of names. I might do that at the end of this podcast with I'd like to apologise too, and we'll have a scroll of 100 names that we've insulted on the podcast.
Well, to be fair, those people died, Lewis. So I mean, I don't think you need to.
Okay, I'll recount that. Yes. So thank you for watching. Also, thank you very much. The YouTube comments to the first episode on YouTube were very nice. We, as well as you, a lot of you said you recognise the need for a podcast like this. So do we. I know even Prado has been outspoken about the lack of quality media coverage at MXGP. That's why We're trying to get him involved and other riders involved on camera, trying to just, a rising tide raises all ships. And I hope that this podcast can make a difference to your MXGP experience, but also the paddock as a whole. That's my aim. That's our aim. Thank you to Polosport, All Balls Racing, and EVS Sports. As I said, MXGP is off again this weekend, so we will see you in 2 weeks to discuss the bottomless sand of Riola Sardo. Thank you for watching or listening, whatever you chose to do. See ya!